7, 6, 5, 4.
This is episode number 449 of WP Watercooler, a spring clean WordPress routine.
It rhymes. You're welcome.
I'm Jason Tucker. You can go to my website at jasontucker.blog. Find everything about me over there.
Hey, I'm Say, and I'm here to say, follow me at Say Read Media on all the things.
And y'all know who it is. It's your boy Jason Cosper, aka Fat Mullenweg, back at it again on the world's most influential WordPress podcast.
Go find that podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. We would very much so enjoy having you over there. And you can go hang out with us over on Discord.
Okay.
Over to WPwatercooler.com/Discord.
There. Also, where do you listen to your podcasts? The two of you. Just curious. Because you said wherever you
Overcast.
listen.
I use Overcast.
But it's so sunny today. Sorry. Okay. I'm going to check it out. I use just the default one on my phone, but I am looking to upgrade my technologies. So, thanks.
I like Overcast very much. It has a thing that eliminates silences from the podcast. That's a problem we don't have here, but sometimes people do pause for quite some time, and closing those gaps can make a 3-hour show about Apple products into a 2.5-hour show about Apple products.
What is that like? Silence. I don't know. Never heard of it.
Mm-mm.
So today we're talking about spring cleaning.
It's spring. Spring has sprung. It is the spring equinox and spring and a lot of rain for all of us. And
yes, in
also,
California, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was gonna say something about how this inspired us to do spring cleaning, but really it was just because Cosper's a wizard. That's the truth of the matter.
Cosper's a wizard.
We titled our thing appropriately for the season because Cosper is a wizard is like, what doesn't make sense as a title necessarily.
Sure,
I mean, I guess it
sure.
could, but like, it doesn't like good. It's not good for CEO.
I
Oh my God.
you know what? I mean, personally, from a completely like personal standpoint, I would appreciate a podcast titled Cosper as a Wizard, but I understand for SEO purposes, we definitely have to kind of discuss that. Let's talk about what sort of kicked this off. Tucker, you recently moved one of your sites. Actually, you moved the WP Watercooler website back over to Spin Up WP, right?
Ooh.
Yeah. I kind of use that website. Yeah, I kind of use Watercooler's website as a way of testing out various web hosts.
It's not really so much as you do.
Well, yeah, when a web host comes out, I go like, you know what? I've never used this web host before. I'm going to give them a shot. And so I'll switch over to them and then give it a shot and see how it works and how their stack is set up and everything.
So things that Jason Tucker does for fun, migrate websites.
Yeah, I totally do it for fun because I don't have any clients that require me to move things around because that's not how my life is set up.
You're bored and you're like, you know what? I have nothing to do tonight. I think I'll migrate my website to a new host.
And it's usually like, I don't know, 15, 20 websites that I have that are all mine or my family members that, don't pay me to do it. And I just kind of move our stuff around. So yeah. So moved to Spin Up WP again. I was there for probably about couple of years when they first launched. I was playing around with them a little bit. Yeah.
I'm here for you.
And
I'm here for
I was finding it very weird because the place I was at before it was working okay, but it wasn't perfect. And so I was like, I didn't have root access.
Host. What?
I didn't have, yeah, exactly.
That's a
Aren't we all?
Right.
I see now why you're changing all the time because your standards are just way too high. That's really
this is true.
You're like, I want root access and automatic updates. Come on.
How hard is it?
You can't.
How hard is it?
Why is it so hard?
Well, I will tell you that way back in the day, Watercooler was hosted on a free account with WP Engine. And
that we got at a WordCamp.
we all got it at WordCamp.
Mine's still alive.
Mine is no longer alive. It's alive, but I'm not allowed to make any changes.
I'm gonna go look.
So yes, I can't log in making changes or anything. So anyhow, moved over there. Things weren't working right, and I'm finding some things are a little slow and acting a little weird. And so I asked Cosper. I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this? What am I doing wrong here? What's not right?"
You were getting somewhere.
I'm sorry, just real quick. We do need to put in the show notes egursis.wpengine.com, or just go there right now by yourself and just get a little taste of that. Okay, sorry.
We'll do.
Moving on.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Yes.
Thank you. I just thought you would appreciate it if you clicked it. Go click it, people. All right.
Yeah. So, yeah, Jason was having some issues. Like he's like, I moved it. And Spin Up WP is normally been pretty fast, been pretty performant to have the site on and everything else. But like he said, he just likes to test stuff out and see how things are going at other hosts, see how other folks do that. And
it's like
so
a cultural exchange program, really.
Yeah, we were looking at the performance, and I threw, as I am want to do when I knew it was coming. When I hear like someone's having a performance issue, I throw the site into web page test.
A website performance issue.
Yes.
Yep.
Let's be clear.
Oh, sure. Grow up.
No.
Not sponsored.
I refuse. Yeah. We're not sponsored. We can make those jokes. I'm here for you people.
Let's see here. Is this? Yes, this is the right one. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick.
We're looking at a waterfall. This is not my favorite kind of waterfall, but it'll work for today.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at that first load, that first page load, 1.6 seconds, and Tucker was like, "What in the hell is going on? Like, can you help me figure out?"
Literally not like that's a line. So just for people who are listening and not whatever, there's the top line here is like
1.5 seconds
four
long.
columns. There's 4 columns of nothing but the host server loading, and before anything on the site even starts. That's what we're looking at here. You've seen it. I know you've all seen it. I know you.
Yeah, and then a bunch of CSS and JavaScript files right after that. If you're not used to seeing waterfall views, that is kind of what follows. Is like all of the CSS and JavaScript needed to load your site, and they've got this nasty little orange icon next to them that says that they're render blocking. So not only is it taking 1.6 seconds to load the water cooler site, then there's also the additional blocking of actual page rendering.
The host is blocking the page rendering until they load fully, or what's blocking that?
Yeah, so see, that's the interesting thing, and no shade to WP Rocket, but Tucker is running WP Rocket and had the CSS and JavaScript set up to defer, but for some reason it just wasn't deferring. So we had to dig into that a little bit.
Defer the render until it was ready, so it didn't get that ping, or what do you mean?
Right. So basically, what it does and what that process does by telling the CSS and JavaScript to defer until they're it's loaded. Basically, it starts showing maybe a flash of unstyled content. You might get a quick look at that, but you can actually see content and know that something is loading instead of just waiting for getting an actual bit of rendered content. So and there are ways to offset that.
Load the content so that it's visually at least something's there, and then you don't have to worry about loading the CSS styles right away. That's what you're talking about. Yes. Okay. Just
correct. And one of the other, and of course, Google will penalize you if you, I'm surprised Say is not twittering at penalize, but we'll just.
I was in my head.
Okay.
I was going to put it in the private chat.
So, but yeah, no, they will give you a kind of knock if your content is unstyled and then it snaps into styling. It's a metric that they call cumulative layout shift.
Yeah,
So
I've heard that word before.
Yeah. So that basically means that like either there's a header image that hasn't fully loaded, and then all of a sudden like your header text pops down because the featured image loads up above it where there wasn't before. Like Google will knock you on that.
Or
It'll
your
knock
font.
you on the or your fonts. Well, the fonts it's a little more
Does it knock
subtle.
you for the fonts?
That's
like
the red one right there in the middle on the bottom, right?
They're like, your
right.
fonts are nonsense. Fonts are, well, I don't want to get down the font hole.
Sure. Sure. We can travel down the font hole some other time. So as I kind of dug into everything, I was just like, hey, what's going on here? Like, why are we running into these problems? And
did you say this looks non-performant?
I absolutely did.
You're right.
And I just kind of thought to myself, like, hey, what can I do to fix this? So we ended up going through the website like kind of bit by bit, and I as I was making these fixes, as I was moving things around, at first I was like, okay, well, let's make sure like the MySQL queries aren't being a hit. So SpinUp WP doesn't have any sort of like PHP my admin or anything like that. So I put AdMiner onto place on the site. And
wait, I'm sorry to clarify. I think I missed something. Was the waterfall we were just looking at from SpinUp, or was that from WP Rocket?
I will know it like the site was hosted on SpinUp WP, and the waterfall was weird. WP Rocket.
But you had already moved it to SpinUp.
Correct.
Yeah. This is after the move.
Got it.
WP Rocket should have been deferring that CSS and JavaScript to so basically it wouldn't load in a way that wasn't performant, that was still dragging down the overall load time. There was also that weird
analytics thing that you also brought to my attention too from that as well, where and this is just one of those things where if you're looking to try to figure out like why are things loading slow, turn off all that crap.
Which crap?
So there's an analytics piece in there.
Which crap specifically?
Yeah. So anytime these plugins try to do any analytics callbacks to their server, it may be slowing that down as well. So like that might be something
like the plugin analytics. So like if you say to the events calendar or like give WP, yes, you can track my stuff. That.
Yeah.
Or Jetpack or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Not
Jetpack. Any of the stuff either that have like rolled their own or using a tool like Freemius to report back like those usage analytics. That all is well and good, and like you should want to help make the plugins you use better. If you're not, you should want to do that, but that also depends on their infrastructure being fast enough to take in all the analytics from all the people who are sending in analytics. And sometimes not so fast.
I've never thought about that before, actually. Like I never thought about the load. Like,
yeah,
I guess I just never even thought about when it would be sending that data. So is it sending that with each page load?
At least on dynamic page loads, yeah.
Wow.
It'll send some of that stuff on generation. Dynamic page loads happen either when your site, like you've just cleared cache or whatever, or in some cases, like in your dashboard in WP admin. So if you notice, like sometimes you'll see that a site is loading a little bit slowly, and then you disable like the analytics or the
I thought you
analytics
were going to say
sharing
you
and
disable the
reporting.
dashboard. I was like, what?
No.
Get rid of that. No one needs it.
And you'll see things speed up and get a little faster. So it's we found I don't want to.
Oh, do it. Just do it. We're not sponsored.
It was also WP Rocket, their analytics.
This is
Right.
love. This is not shade.
Yeah.
This is constructive criticism. That always has such a bad ring, but this is just honest analysis, is what it is. No shade.
But it was
reality.
It was adding about 0.4 to 0.5 seconds on every dynamic page load.
Wow.
And one of the things that we also quickly came to realize is in order to help make the WP Watercooler site a little more compatible with the Fediverse and ActivityPub and Mastodon, Tucker had put some code in place to get it to be more Cloudflare compatible that was making every page load a dynamic page load. So we were bypassing spin up WP's page caching first and foremost. So that's why every page load was taking 1.6, sometimes 2 seconds.
Because it's like, I've never seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
What is this page? Wow. It's so new and fresh.
So, but in doing that, in seeing these dynamic page loads in kind of blowing past caching, we managed to sort out some actual real problems here. So it turns out that the issue was like, okay, on dynamic page loads, things are a little bit slow. Like if caching was working correctly, had we not tried to be a little more Fediverse and ActivityPub compatible, we would have missed this, and we would be doing a show on a completely different topic today.
Wait, so real quick, that code was causing it to load dynamically, but was also a problem that you found because of that?
It was doing more misses than hits.
Wow,
is
that's
what
really
was happening.
Interesting. Had you noticed the speed of the site, and that's why you were saying something? I mean, because when we're talking about performance, we're talking about fractions of a second, and that matters for Google. But in terms of like human experience, you could look away, and then the page is loaded, and Google thinks it's slow, and you were just like, "Oh, there's a bird."
Yeah, what was weird for me is I pulled out, used my iPhone and was trying to go to the website, and it wouldn't load.
Oh,
like the browser would time out. It was just like I'm just not going to load. I'm like, what is going on here? And that's when I started digging further into it. Yeah.
So that server time load, that first load, was so long that your mobile browser was timing out.
Yeah, at one point. Yeah. That was right after I moved it. So that's why I was like, okay, I got to figure out what's going on here. I mean, I'm going to circle back around to the whole Cloudflare, Cloudflare, Fediverse, all that kind of stuff thing to kind of get it to work right. There's a bunch of Nginx stuff I got to change and whatever to get it to work right. But yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like there's something funky there. And so, yeah, trying to go through that. You also did something else, Cosper, where you started going through and looking at the database and the way in which the indexes were set up, and you started throwing like all these different plugins at me that you were using to kind of set these things up, and I'm like, dude, where have these been? Like, I know you're holding out. Like, what's going on here?
Seriously. Corner over here.
So
it was like pulling out albums that had just like a one color background with like the band's name on the front of it, and you're just like, oh, no one would ever look at that. That's what I was like. I was just like, what is this?
Tell us.
Yeah. So there were a few plugins that I had pulled out. One that people will very likely be familiar with, which is Query Monitor by John Blackburn. If you've done some site troubleshooting, digging in. Query Monitor is fantastic for kind of seeing not only the queries that are being used, like sometimes, like if there are repeated queries, if there are slow queries, like kind of that general like MySQL thing, but also it will help you pick out like what and how a page gets generated, like the timings for how the page is generated as well. This is all very helpful for like drilling into these issues. This is how I found that slow post to sending analytics to WP Rocket. Also, it called out a slow query, or not a slow query, a slow request to Font Awesome, which, like Tucker says, he puts plugins and he moves hosting around on the site just because he's like, okay, this is a live site. Like, I'm going to play around with it. I'm going to give this plugin a throw.
Because he's a cowboy.
No one's going to jasontucker.blog.
Right.
Unless I tell him to.
You have a very dedicated audience that is upset with you for taking that site down for 5 minutes.
Sorry, Mom.
Wait, I just went real quick. I want to say something about Query Monitor if we were going to move on. I don't know if you're going to move on yet or not.
Please.
I used Query Monitor once when I was using Buddy Boss. So Buddy Boss is like a kind of a fork essentially of Buddy Press. It's more like a commercial. Buddy Press is very DIY and kind of, I don't know what the right word is. Bare bones, I suppose, maybe like a little like, build your own kind of. So anyway, they forked it and they've made this like kind of mobile app. You can add your mobile app and stuff. And they say that it's supposed to work really well with I was going to call it Learn WP, but that's not what it's called. The one of the LMSs, Learn Dash. There it is.
Sure.
Or really probably any of them, but they have a specific module and whatnot. And when I would have just a few people logging in that community, logging in to their account, which, by the way, pretty basic to have people log in to their accounts for a community that's the whole thing around it. Query Monitor just went nuts. Like, I have never seen so much activity in my life. And I'm like, what is this? Turns out it's actually a problem it's mostly Learn Dash's problem. So not actually Buddy Boss's problem, but that, it's Learn Dash you don't always have multiple people. Well, I mean, you might, but you don't always, have it right at that same moment, like when a class is starting or something. So everyone comes on and like floods the site. So Query Monitor was very helpful for figuring out that it doesn't give you solutions. It just shows you, it's like your JavaScript console, it just shows you what's up. It does not tell you how to fix it. So I think that is, well, I guess that's ChatGPT's job now. But that is what
another show topic. Like
for that was the only thing that I felt was like, not that they had to fix all my problems, but I had this information and I didn't know what to do with that information to solve the problem. Yep. So that was kind of the problem. Like, I'm like, great, I have this thing and I see there's too many queries happening here. So how do I fix that without, am I hacking Learn Dash now? Like, so that's something that I think, you really, obviously, this is your bread and butter. So you have an advantage there. Oh, these things are here. I need to change these things. So if you at some point want to touch on how we can solve our problems that we find, that would be good too later on.
This is only a 30-minute show, but yes, I'm happy to
and I
dig into
all
that.
of it. Jesus. Okay. Anyway, go on. Okay.
So also another, and something that Tucker touched on a little bit is the Index WP MySQL for Speed plugin.
Right? Isn't this such a just basic name? Makes it like
it's so CEO. No, just kidding. It's very SEO-y.
Sure.
Index WP MySQL for Speed. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
what it's doing.
Yeah, it does exactly what it says on
Oh,
the
hey,
tin.
look, it's a community
Absolutely.
plugin. Look at that. It's got a community plugin designation.
Ooh.
Still
Yeah.
not totally clear on what that means, but it does have one. So it's not a commercial plugin. There you go. That's what you know.
Yeah. So one of the things, and there has been discussion in the performance team about adding some of the indexes that are used here to help speed things up. But it adds indexes to your post, to your post meta, a few other things that make your overall queries to the WordPress database that are done by very like default and standard practices things so much faster.
Can it do
It's
it for
basically
users? The users table?
I don't know that they have a users table. Here we go. Yes, users and user meta.
Oh,
Absolutely.
great. That because I mean, I've been on the user. I've been talking about users a lot lately, but like that is, there are a lot of solutions for posts and things like that. But when you have a giant site with a lot of users on it, a community of whatnot, like queries of searching your user database can just shut everything down because there's so many users. So that's something that, I mean, so just to clarify also, the indexing means essentially it takes batches and like can refer to, it like sort of like an address. Like it's like, oh, look here for that, right? So it like makes it makes an index, I guess. Another index, sort of.
Yeah, it's the Dewey Decimal System, the table of contents, the appendix for your database. It is a so it can say and make like it can make specific indexes that say like everything that matches this post ID, but also these particular bits of post meta. So that way, when you're querying for a post ID, it returns everything with the post ID. But it kind of adds some additional refinements, sort of like how Facet WP, like faceting for
WP.
these additional things.
They also do indexing, so that actually makes sense because they index the custom post types or the taxonomies or whatever it is that you're searching. So they must do super similar things in terms of like basically they're saying query, you don't have to go look through the whole thing. You just look at this list here and it tells you where to look, right? That's basic. So it doesn't cycle through the whole database.
Yeah.
Right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So it basically gives your database a way to make the lookups and the things that it is looking for easier.
Is this something you can just load, like literally like as a performance plugin on any site and just have it operate? Like it doesn't need to, like, is it just like, kind of set it and forget it and it just indexes as you go?
You activate it, you tell it to create the indexes for you, and then after that, yes, like wow. You basically it's all good and it's all set. As indexes get added to WordPress core, so if they do bring in indexes from this plugin or created by the community, there should be a way to transition there. Like I said, it's been a minute since I've actually been in a performance meeting and checked in on what's going on with these indexes specifically, but it is definitely something that they have talked about bringing into core. So hopefully,
we only have a second, but I want to ask one quick question. If you had indexing set up with like Facet WP, for example, which is doing its own indexing, and then or maybe another plugin that does a similar thing, and then you also did this, is it like having two security plugins, or is it like having two slider plugins or something? Is that a negative, or is this something that can really just be like additional, like an add-on, even if you have other stuff going on?
That's a great question. So very simply, when the plugin loads, it looks for your existing indexes, and if your indexes match its indexes, it doesn't create the index for like that it is doing.
So
Also,
it wouldn't override or take precedence over like Facet WP's indexes.
right. It doesn't go all X to the Z and go, yo, dog, I heard you like indexes, so I put an index in your index so you can index your index.
That's exactly what I was asking. Does it put an index in your index? Or is it just, you know,
it's a glossary of your index.
It's a glossary of your index.
So we'll if you're okay with it, Tucker, we'll run just a tiny bit.
Sure, go for it.
Okay.
I'll mute myself.
So I also did some optimization on the images, which I don't have this pulled up. I could pull it up very quickly, but the EWWW image optimizer plugin, people might be familiar with it.
It's got such a weird name.
Ew.
Like, why is it named that?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, dang, I was supposed to be muted.
So image optimizer, I ended up installing this on the site, not only to do some lossless optimization on the images, but also to convert all of the images on Watercooler or make copies of the images as WebP versions of the images. So if you are browsing plugin, if you are browsing the site from a WebP compatible browser, and part of the functionality in the image optimizer plugin is to add images to the actual image and picture tags that show like, hey, if your browser can support WebP, here's the WebP copy of it. Otherwise, here's the JPEG or here's the PNG or whatever. So it's also like backwards compatible.
And I was using a competing product to try to pull this off, and it just wasn't working right. So,
well, part of the problem is that it was using a PHP script to rewrite to the WebP version, or to the, so basically going like, hey, check this PHP script to see if we have a WebP copy of this, and if so, serve that WebP copy up. The problem is,
it doesn't sound faster.
It's not faster.
It's not faster.
Or this uses JavaScript, correct?
It uses JavaScript, or well, there's two options. You can use one, both, or none. But effectively, you can use it where it'll rewrite the image and picture tag, and then also as a fallback, it'll use JavaScript rewriting. The JavaScript rewriting is nice because it will also support any images that are in like your CSS or anything like that, and will rewrite. Go, no. You don't want the JPEG of this. You want the WebP of this. Here, go here.
This is like you inside of a server going like, stop putting PNGs in there. Stop it. Stop. That's like whenever I make an image to put on a site now, I'm like, wait, is it supposed to be a JPEG or a PNG? Which one is Casper going to be mad at me if I use the wrong one? He's going to judge me so hard. Oh no.
Well, I was asking on Mastodon about like, are people uploading WebP images just to start, just so you're not like having to do conversions and all that fun stuff. I think WordPress is super bloated in the way in which it manages images. And so I was just like, can I just get there without having to like do other stuff? But
yeah,
I guess
absolutely.
probably better just go about this way.
Is that no?
And then there was one last. I'm trying to be mindful of the overtime that we're in. There was one last plugin that I used, which is not in the repo. It is on GitHub. Even though it says a lot of these files say that they were last updated 2 years ago. It's had an update within the past 5 months. This is a thing called WordPress server timing. And what WordPress server timing does, and this is so cool, it adds server timing headers to every one of your requests that is served up by WordPress. So it will show, say you alluded to the JavaScript and the DevTools console earlier, it will show a breakdown of how long your request took. So how much of a request to generate a page is the actual like database query? How much of it is your template, your theme processing and generating all of that? How much is the plugin contributing to this, like your various plugins? Like, and
It's
it
like a
gives
very
you
detailed waterfall. Basically,
yes,
what we're looking like. It's like a waterfall, but well, like specific to your site and what
correct.
specific queries or what specific things are taking up that time in general. It's like really
Yeah, what specific things are contributing to the load time of a page when it's loading? So
that's
it's
helpful.
really cool. It's really helpful. I found out about this plugin just earlier this week, and immediately I'm like, oh, this is like the best. Like I'm going to, in a lot of cases, I will. When I'm seeing a slow site, I'll install a tool like an APM, an application performance monitor, like New Relic or whatever, and put that in place. But when I was working with Tucker on this, at first he was like, "Oh, let me get you SSH access to the server," and I went, "No, I'm going to do this all in the browser. I want to like show off as much as possible. Like, here's how much I was able to do without needing SSH. The only thing I actually needed SSH access for, and I didn't even really need it, is I ran the image optimization through for EU Image Optimizer through WP CLI, so it wouldn't, like, that would be running on the server and it wouldn't be bogging down the actual like serving of the pages while I was doing it. It might take up some memory, but it wouldn't make things like ultimately slower.
Yeah, it's not having to spin up like all the workers and whatnot to actually do everything through the web server, instead of it just doing it straight from the command line and running the code against the files that exist in the file system, instead of it going through the web server doing it all.
So let's take a look now that I've used up another 7 minutes of your time. Let's look at the actual results from a little bit later. We went from a time to first byte. Let's take a look here of like 1.5 seconds. I think the worst one, it was 1.699 seconds to 0.457 seconds.
That's like,
yeah.
I mean, for me, it doesn't matter because I don't even notice really. But for Google cares a lot, and
yeah,
I think where this really can impact client sites and stuff is not maybe even in the 0.5 seconds, but especially when clients or people who are not aware of performance or thinking about performance or any of that, they can really bog down a site. And so we're usually with client facing sites, because this is a tech person led site, right? So like client sites where it's not all optimized, like this could probably save 2 seconds, like actual full seconds, like doing this type of these changes, as opposed to 0.5, which is actually really remarkable and commendable anyway. But I think this type of spring clean routine would really could really just take client sites to the next level.
Absolutely. So if that is your thing, like really, I guess the kind of takeaway from all of this is like, hey, come on, like spring is sprung. Let's go in and take a look at your most important sites. Especially if you have clients, like talk to them about like, hey, you know what? It's springtime. Let's take a look and try to like polish up that site and make sure that it's working as quickly as it can be.
And I think you can, what, like an hour, 2 hours? Like, what could you quote a client? You'd be like, I'm going to do this analysis for an hour, and then we'll see what we need to do, like not the fixes, but just, the analysis to check it out. What would you say? Like an hour, 2 hours total?
I would say For me, it was about an hour. I'd say like dedicate about 2 hours to this, like dig into it and
To solve it
use
or to analyze it? Or both?
to analyze it.
Yeah.
To analyze it, and then like Tucker, how long would you say? I was maybe 2.5, 3 hours. Like,
yeah, and you probably weren't 100% just doing that. You were probably doing other things, jumping back and forth and letting things happen over here while I'm doing something over here, kind of thing. Yeah,
right.
And you're answering all the questions that I had as you're going through and doing them. Some of which I'm like, oh yeah, I've heard of that before, and other ones I'm like, oh, that's an interesting one. Okay, okay.
You know, we. From my perspective, right? Because I'm not operating my own sites. I'm operating or I'm managing or whatever I'm doing to them, other people's sites. And it can be complicated on my end when they're not asking me for something or a new feature for me to say, hey, your site's working fine. It's not broken or anything, but we could make it better. And it's going to, cost you X amount of dollars because, that's my time. So like, it's not like you're working if you work somewhere and that's your job, you're like, I'm just going to block off, 2 to 3 hours for this. But for your clients, you have to make a case, right? You have to say, sure, this will help you in SEO. This will help your site load this. And that really can help for purchases, especially, if you, the quicker it works, the less, thought time of maybe I don't buy this happens.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I got this hypertext t-shirt, by the way. It took like 2 seconds to buy it. But I think that is, that's something I struggle with is proactive performance tasks with a client to be able to explain to them why they need it, or even to say, we've got all this other stuff to do, but also I'd like to do this. So, I think it's really important. You obviously think it's really important. We know that it's important from a technical level, but I think it can be difficult from a client level to have them understand the value. So do you think you could just say, I know we're way over, but like real quick, like what would be like, what is besides just, shaving off all this time, whatever, what is the like website owner value of doing your spring cleaning?
Yeah. As far as that goes, really, the big thing and the easiest way to sell this to folks is if they have some sort of like e-commerce component to their site, if they are trying to like sell a thing, and now my dogs are barking that you've asked a question and we're in overtime. But if they're trying to sell something, if they're trying to make money off of their site, like there's that Amazon. Oh my God, they're really going off, aren't they?
What happened? Are you getting a delivery?
No, Sarah came home. So,
oh, they're excited.
Yeah, they are. So, oh my. You know what?
Why don't we take that? We're in overtime. Why don't we take that on to a next show? Here, mute yourself for a second. We can take that on to the next show and talk about that, because that's even, something we could talk about, like justifying these things that are not so obvious on the front end, and the, back end improvements that, matter.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It could be, new versions of plugins that come out, and
the
technology has changed. Yeah.
I mean, the technology changing is so real. Like the sites I built 3 years ago, I'm like, well, we kind of should rebuild this component because it's totally changed. So anyway, we can talk about that on another show.
Perfect.
Thanks for your awesome work, and also just for, explaining it in a way that helps make it make sense, and finding all those cool tools.
Alrighty, folks.
He's silently saying thank you.
Let's see if I can do the outro. Maybe it'll work.
Nope.
Well,
if you subscribe, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Spotify, on YouTube, on like the somewhere in the metaverse, but also join our Discord and just come chat with us. Okay, love you. Bye.